Hey everybody,
Hi.
how's it going? Welcome to the live stream. So while we are just waiting for everybody to join, do you want to just let us know where you are listening in from? Me and Francis are in London today because it's our launch day. So breaking from the norm, we are both together in the same room and presenting live from London.
Where are you joining us from, Lucy?
I'm in the New Forest in Burley, in the New Forest, very hot. And I'm glad you made me come in the house because I was in my shed, which looks like a sauna at the best of times, and it was roasting. So it's actually quite nice being in here.
Yeah, you don't want to be sitting in a sauna today, probably.
Oh, Rich is on the beach in Bournemouth. That
Oh,
sounds like a very good plan, Rich.
I bet you're not
amazing,
alone
Rich.
there, Rich.
Oh, so
You're
lovely.
knee deep in paddling.
We've got people from all over. Delighted to see some of our new community members.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hertfordshire, Cardiff, London. I don't know. Where's Ellie from? I don't recognise that.
Altrincham.
Altrincham. It's
Altrincham.
Manchester, isn't
In
it?
Cheshire.
Manchester.
Yeah, Cheshire. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
It's very nice, I think,
There we
isn't
go.
it, Ellie?
And Birmingham as well. That's hot. My little brother's in Birmingham.
Very nice.
I
I've
say
got fond
that he's
memories of
24.
Birmingham. Right then, let's do this.
Wonderful. Excellent. Yes. Good stuff. Well, thank you very much for joining us, everybody. We are Simon and Francis from Better, Bolder, Braver, the community for coaches where we empower you to attract better customers, build a bolder offer, and be braver with your planning, pricing, and purpose. So this is the first of our Monday Masterclass sessions, and it's also the launch day of our community. Hooray! So it's a first event and a first day of the community. So this is fantastic to combine two firsts into one. So thank you all for joining us. So Francis, do you want to introduce what today's session is all about?
Surely. Very excited. We've got a really amazing lineup of masters in the forthcoming season, first season of the Monday Masterclasses, which is available whether you're in the Better Bolder Braver community, which we hope many of you are going to be joining, or if you're not a coach, you're most welcome to listen in to these on a weekly basis. It's going to be a combination of amazing coaches and also people from what we're calling our marketing family, so experts in various practices within the marketing sector. And today, for the first ever Monday Masterclass, we have Lucy Bramley, who is somebody I've got to know over the last 6 months. We met thanks to LinkedIn, where all the best people meet, and we've got to know each other really well, albeit not in real life, but that's kind of normal now. And we've worked together and thought about a lot together. The topics have ranged from coaching to sustainability, being women, emergence, transitions, corporate life, coaching life, the environment. So I don't know where today is going to go because it could go in so many different directions with Lucy, but we're very proud to be partnering with her on the first event, and also very grateful because I think Lucy's going to give us a real window into her particular personal transition that she's going through right now. So without any further delay, I'd like to hand over to you, Lucy, to let us know where you're at today, emotionally, physically.
Perfect. Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Simon, and congratulations, like lots of people are saying in the chat, on launching your new business today. And I'm so happy to be part of it. I'm so happy to be part of this community at the start. And when we got talking about this session, I'm so passionate about communities and the impact that they can have on our lives. And I think we've all seen that over the past sort of 16, 18 months, because the nature of communities really changed in some ways for the better, and in some ways absolutely not. We're all absolutely raring to get back in real life touch with one another. But yeah, I wanted to share a bit about my story. I've worked in the tech sector now for 23 years. It doesn't seem that long, and I don't think I meant it to be that long when I first got involved in it. But I am making a fairly big change in terms of what I do. I'm people manager at the moment, and I've worked in various different roles in tech. I've been a project manager. I've managed part of a business dealing in test. I've worked in services, I've worked in sales, in software, in cloud. And I think over the last couple of years, I just got a real feeling that I wanted to do something different. And being part of different communities, a lot of which I've only really joined over the last couple of years, has really helped me to find out what that is, what my why is, and where I want to be going next. So, really excellent opportunity to talk to people about the power of communities. And I put together a little graphic to sort of show what I mean. If Simon can dive in there and share that so you can see, because it's just a nice way of representing some of the things that I think are important. And it would be great to hear from people, in the chat, with your thoughts and how communities have helped you. But I've listed a few things in here, and I do see it as a Venn diagram. It's interwingled, as my friend John Layton often says. You don't know sometimes where some things start and some things end, and where you got to know about something, which bit of your networks it was from. So that's really what I wanted to talk about, and I've got lots of stories that fit into these different segments. So I'm happy to just dive in if that's all right with you too, or did you want to start with? Yeah. Oh, excellent. So I think speaking very openly, I was getting quite miserable in terms of what I was doing for work, and thinking work's such a big part of our lives, isn't it? It seemed like an even bigger part of our lives for the last 18 months, because it's very difficult to see the blurring of the lines of things when you work in knowledge industries and you're working from home. One of the things that struck me and about this Venn diagram it's kind of part of was the overlap of work and I've got volunteering on there. So the overlap of work and volunteering. What do I mean by that? I went on a course at work, and it was for women to kind of try and stop a problem which Microsoft's seeing happening, where women have got to a certain position in the company and they either don't get any further or they leave. So it was all about how can you find the right way for you to develop yourself and for you to develop your career. And it was an excellent course, but honestly, I found some of it a bit of a turn off, because I was thinking, a lot of this stuff, it makes sense, developing your stakeholder network, but I don't know if I want to really do that here. And I actually had a bit of coaching as part of the course. It was delivered by a wonderful lady called Sonia Bate, who owns her own training company, Edit Development. And she's got this network of brilliant coaches. And one of them said to me, it doesn't have to necessarily be about Microsoft. You look at stakeholder mapping in terms of what you're passionate about, what you want to do in future. So I did, I looked at it through that lens. And there was somebody that I'd met through my volunteering efforts. I'm an enterprise advisor. I work with a school in Bournemouth and Poole College. And I've met a wonderful lady called Helen Rivero, who'd basically written her own coaching tool and was using it to help young people to find their why and to understand what their strengths were. Great way of getting them to think about the future, not just, what they want to do for a job, but how they work in teams, how they work on their own, what kind of interactions they prefer or not, because sometimes it's difficult to figure that out, isn't it? Even for those of us that are a little bit further on in years. So it was things like that. I was putting into my stakeholder map all these people that I wanted to get to know more, and then through Helen, I got to thinking about coaching, and then we get into the serendipity box. One day I'm on a train. There'd been a strike, so there were fewer trains. The train was running late and it was really packed, and I was standing up and we were like sardines. And I've got a bit of a bad back at that point. I'd pulled something in my back, so I was sort of standing there thinking, this is really unpleasant. And the lady in front of me had lovely shoes on, but they weren't that comfy. She'd been for an interview, and we got talking, and that was Becky Gulliver, and I don't know, it was a chance meeting on the train, and then we didn't see each other again for ages, and then we started bumping into each other on the train all the time. And one day we're sitting there, and I'm saying to her, I'm thinking about doing more around coaching, but I feel a little bit lost in terms of where to go. And she said, you want to talk to my friend Lucy Mullins, who's setting up this amazing training course. So then we're getting to the overlap with the training bubble. And I had a conversation with Lucy, and I ended up joining the course, Ride the Wave. And I met some just amazing people. There were 11 of us going through that initial coaching course. And it opened up my mind, to all the different things that were on offer in terms of coaching, all the different types of coach you could be, how I could use it with young people and work with somebody like Helen, how I could use all my knowledge from tech, which I don't want to leave behind, how I could help and encourage more people to come into tech, but also, how I could build networks out to look more at sustainability, which is a real passion of mine. And that's both a personal, mental thing, but also in terms of the environment, because I think we all appreciate that, there are problems at the moment, which are of our making. So, we've all got to be doing more really to try and live more sustainable lives. So hopefully you can see what I'm saying. There's all these interlocking circles. You can find a path, through coaching, where you can get all these circles to overlap. And I've got one on there that's got a question mark and a light bulb. And that's really leave space for emergence is a wonderful word. And thanks for using it, Fran, earlier on. Leave space for stuff to just happen. So for instance, somebody sent me a message probably about 18 months ago now on LinkedIn and said, I'm setting up a series of working out loud groups, and working out loud, Google it if you've not seen it. It's a really cool way of learning new things with people that you may or may not know. And in this instance, I didn't know any of them. And there were 5 of us, 2 ladies from Germany, a lady from France, and another lady from Bristol. And this guy, Simon Figg, who just sort of pinged us all out of the blue on LinkedIn, put these working out loud groups together. And the 5 people that are in mine, we went through the working out loud process. A couple of us are coaches, a couple in learning development and training, and somebody else in tech. And again, all our sort of bubbles of experience and motivation overlapped. And we still talk. The working out loud thing was a couple of months. We kind of went through a load of exercises together, and it was all around reading a book called Designing Your Life, which is a great book, actually, well worth reading. And we still meet, and we still talk to each other on LinkedIn a couple of times a week. And we've never met. Hopefully we will one day. But obviously lots of challenges around that at the moment. But yeah, hopefully you can see from what I've created here, you'll have your own Venn diagram, you'll have your own labels for your bubbles, but leave space for emergence, be open to meeting new people. I've seen Gary's just popped something in the chat. Gary and Rich Cooper are like super connectors. I look at the Venn diagram that I've got, and Gary and Rich are right in the middle. They know so many people. And I love that because one of the things that I quite often do if I'm a bit stuck with, who can I talk to about such and such? I'll ask someone like Rich, because chances are he'll know someone, and he's really kind at introducing. So I'm fairly sure I met Fran through Rich. So it's, all these things. I think it's wonderful. And I think I said in our material that we put out before this session, I really don't think I could have got to where I am now without communities, and that's not just coaching, but especially obviously what I'm thinking about at the moment is coaching. I know the community is really going to help me. I know it's going to change. I'm going to develop new ones. That's exciting, and you don't know what they are. But even all the other elements of my life and career have involved communities and networks. They're so important to our success and our health and well-being, I think.
Thanks, Lucy. And you're obviously in a major transition right now, because as you say, you've done 20 years in the tech.
23, yeah,
23.
in IT.
And that transition from going from this sort of professional family to being a sole trader is something that you and I have talked about, right, quite a lot over the last few months, and sort of paying tribute to and just kind of paying respect to, rather than kind of ripping yourself from one particular context and putting yourself in another and just assuming that everything's going to be absolutely fine. Can you talk, if you're happy to, about the sort of feelings that are coming up for you from moving, not only into coaching, but from that big corporate environment into something where you're going to be working from home a lot more, and how community will help with that experience for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm a bit of a dreamer. So, I've always got a pipe dream that I'm puffing away on. So I've had loads of dreams about where my life's going to go. So I wasn't afraid of the thought process. I think some people get worried even of thinking about doing something different. But I've not really had that. But as it gets closer, I'm leaving on the 1st of September. I do think, wow, I can just see how different this is going to be, because I've this is my existence. I'm used to all the jargon of tech. I'm used to working with at Microsoft about 150,000 other people. And when I was at IBM before that, IBM at the time was about 400,000 people globally, so huge networks. And then all the people that work around that business. So yeah, one of the things I've been thinking is, I know I've got to learn new languages, and there's some of this language that I want to take with me, but there's some of it that it isn't really going to be appropriate, and I'm kind of going to leave it or develop it into something else. So I think part of it's the fear of the new, as well as the excitement of the new. Things about communities, one of the things that I think actually Becky, in a very gentle manner, advised me to have proper conversations with my husband about what my intentions were. And I don't know about you, but I sort of think, well, he'll just know. We've been together 16 years, but he didn't really. And he works in tech as well, so we're kind of in this. We're in one bubble in that sense. So yeah, having really open conversations about, look, I this is what I want to do, and I really need your support to do it. And that was very powerful, and it means a lot, because obviously I'm going from a guaranteed monthly income of X to a guaranteed monthly income of 0, unless unless I build some work up. So that really important to have your family and friends on board. And one of the things that you've helped me with, Fran, is talking about what it means, what your business is. I in my head, I know what I'm going to be doing, but when somebody asks me, I'm like, burble. So yeah, develop the message. What do you want to be known for? And I've got a quote on that, actually. It's Maya Angelou. She's got some amazing quotes, doesn't she? Ask for what you want and be prepared to get it. And I've already seen that. I've already seen that in action, because I say to people, I'm a coach. I want to help people to understand how their brain works, what their strengths are, what their values are, to really sort of say what they want out of life and be open and honest about it, and to have the resilience, to be able to deal with setbacks as they come, and to understand where setbacks come from. And I think that's a powerful message, and it tells people a little bit about the sorts of clients I'm looking for, and the fact that, I'm open to whoever that is, men, women, young people, just starting out on their career, or people that are changing direction. And so, it's really helped me. I think, you in the series of calls that you're going to do, and in your network, you're going to talk a lot about niching and identity. And sometimes it's really difficult to find that on your own. And one of the best things about being in a community is you can say to people that you know really well, or even people that you don't, who am I? What do you see when you talk to me? And you just get such a different view to when you ask the person in the mirror, right?
That's it. And I love what you're saying about those conversations might start with your husband, but that practice of asking yourself, what is it that I really am trying to do, so that you're able to tell someone else, are really important. Because what we think is really clear, because it's in our heads, is a very different language that we're talking to how the language that we're going to need to kind of tell people outside our head what it is that we want to do. And that's for the purpose of getting people around us to support us in doing it. But also, obviously, we're going to say this, it's how are you going to find your people in terms of for that support, but also in terms of clients. And we've talked a bit about this, haven't we, Lucy? Quite a bit about sort of who is it that you want to surround yourself with? What's the work that you feel is going to kind of energize you? And maybe again, it's about that transition from where you're coming from to where you're going as a coach. But can you talk about that sort of thing, sustainability, or the energy that's around sustainability that inspires you to make decisions about the transition you're making now, but also perhaps the people that you want to surround yourself with, the clients you're looking to work with?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see some of it in the coaching that I do at Microsoft at the moment. So, there's different elements to my job, one being a leader and a manager in a sales and marketing organization. There's a lot about the job where I'm having to talk about what it is that we sell, what it is that our products can do. And if I'm honest, that doesn't really fire me up. But where I've seen, that I can feel the fire, igniting inside me, is when I talk to people that I'm coaching, some of whom, work for me, and some who don't, they just come and say, need to have a conversation about a few things. And you get them to think about what are their passions. And sometimes you have to dig quite deep, to find your own and other people's. But you see people's demeanor change when they talk about things that make them happy, when they talk about things that give them energy and confidence. So I love that element, of coaching. It's like, let's find the things that are really positive and really give you a boost. Let's not spend too much time talking about what makes you miserable, because then we're spending time there. We're not, we've got to move to the good stuff. And the bad stuff will become less important, if we're focusing on the good stuff. That's my belief anyway.
I just want to interrupt you quickly to say thank you so much to Michelle and Gary and Rachel and everyone else who's commenting, because absolutely please feel free to comment. And Rachel's just asked if we can show your amazing Venn diagram again. So if we just put that up for the sake of...
And we can send it out to people. I made it on Canva.
I'll post it in the community straight after this. So it'll be under this playback. I'll post it in there and share it in the community for sure.
And we'll also happily share with anyone who isn't in the community Lucy's sort of social links as well, and we'll give you a chance to shout out about those at the end, Lucy, so that if you want to share this yourself, then people will know where to find you and you'll have it where you are.
And don't worry, you're not interrupting. It's there's other things on here that I think I've kind of covered in what we've been talking about, but maybe not shouted out enough. Friends is an interesting one to me. I'm one of those people that if I meet you and we get on, then I think you're my friend. and I do that whether it's at work or out on a walk or other people's friends. I just think that's so important. Is that connection, that sense of understanding, and I think making friends uses a really important coaching skill, which is listening and being interested, being curious about other people. So it's thanks for asking to see it. That makes me feel good.
I think also the thing that I see when I see friends there with my marketing hat on is that actually your work that you've got in the middle there is connected to friends, and obviously not implying that all of your clients would or should become friends, but if you approach a conversation in a friendly way, or you sort of talk about your work in a way that you would maybe explain it to a friend, sometimes that can help to break down that initial barrier that someone might have to reaching out to you, because they may have heard a coach describe what they do or the outcome they're helping people get to, or those sort of insights they're helping people realise in that way before. And sometimes it can be just that simple, breaking it down, having a chat type language or conversation that can really help people understand what it is you do and why they or someone they know might find working with you beneficial.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, I really like that. So it's very wise advice, isn't it? And it's an interesting one. I think a lot of people think coaching is like training or like therapy. People have got an interpretation, haven't they, on what coaching means. And there's lots of different types of coaching. It's a big market, it's a growing market, but there's room for everybody, because what you'll find is we've all got a different offering, and actually we can help each other build our businesses because we can work together doing different things, passing things between each other. So and then it's difficult not to become friends. I guess if you're working with people you don't like, and well, we've all done it, I suppose. That it makes work less fun, doesn't it?
So I think, and I also think what you were saying about that sort of internal external dialogue thing, it's really valuable, because what you assume to be the kind of approach that people take to coaching, or the approach that people take to putting themselves out there, might be a very, very different. There might be a very different view taken by someone else, and that the benefit of being in a community and talking openly to other coaches. What we want to dispel quite quickly is the idea that you're amongst competitors, and that kind of comes with those of us who come from a corporate environment. It's kind of like, yes, but there's those guys over there, and what are we doing here? Have we got an introducer agreement going on but they don't, or what's going on? And there's
what if they find out?
Yeah, like watch your back kind of culture. And I hope that we can all quickly understand in the community that it's a lot of coaches, but we all will have very different approaches to how we work, how we talk, how we put ourselves out there, where we put ourselves, and like how frequently. And that all comes down to the sort of questions that we ask people about what their appetite is for business in terms of regularity. We work with people around pricing as well, and everyone's pitching themselves in slightly different ways what we want is for those ways to be reflective of the values that we've agreed for ourselves we have, and the ways in which we want to show up in the world and the people we want to surround ourselves with, as opposed to constantly only thinking about the people that we want to serve and not thinking enough about ourselves. But the point I'm trying to make is that I think actually everything is quite nuanced in terms of coaching delivery, and we're not there to help you sort of have lengthy conversations about what makes a good coach, because we're surrounded by incredible accreditation organisations and sort of wonderful continued professional development offerings for coaches. What we're here to do is to kind of ask you guys, what makes you do you think stand out? What are the things that you want to put out there so that you're attracting back something that's going to allow for your business to be sustainable? So I want to go to the sustainability thing, Lucy. We had a really interesting conversation the other day, and I loved the way that you put it. You talked to me about the kind of internal ecosystem, and I think we're all doing a lot, again, it's that internal external thing, isn't it? We're doing a lot of thinking about the external ecosystem and our responsibilities to it, but I love the way that you frame it as a kind of internal ecosystem. And I wondered if you might just share, because those for me are what make you incredibly unique, those thoughts about a kind of internal ecosystem. So I just want to make sure that we've given you the chance to talk about that.
And I think it links to what Nisha, and sorry if I've not pronounced your name right, but you mentioned, you know, your own thoughts and questions that you asked yourself, and you might think that the questions are self-explanatory, and you might kind of perfectly understand what your thoughts are, but when you say it to somebody else, you just see this. So yeah, that's your ecosystem, your mental ecosystem. It's all in here, and we have conversations with ourselves as if we were talking to other people. So we imagine what people are going to say to us. Sometimes when I'm preparing for a session with you, Fran, and you're helping me to think about where my business is going, I'll have a little conversation which is, Fran's going to tell me off because I haven't done X, Y, and Z. Or Fran's going to think that this is a bit of a bonkers idea. Well, that's me. That's my voice. That's not Fran's voice. And actually, when I talk to you, I get very unexpected answers sometimes. And I've learned to think, when I go into these conversations with you, I don't know where it's going to go, and actually that's great. And that's why we're working together. Because it helps. And I know that as you launch your business, I'm helping you as well. And we make each other think. So yeah, your ecosystem is you, how you feel about yourself, how you treat yourself, and so all the things that you do in your life impact your health and wellness. They impact your brain. Your brain wasn't fully formed the day you popped out of the womb, and the day that you die, it won't have switched itself off like 10 years in advance. Your brain, neuroplasticity, which is a wonderful concept. Please do read up on it, people, if you're not sure. There's loads of stuff on the internet about it, and some really good books which we can post in the community after the event. But your brain develops itself all the time, but it is a muscle and you've got to work it. So if you just kind of sit in the chair watching, I'm sorry, I'm going to say Love Island, I don't watch it, and no offense to people that do love it, maybe it's your guilty pleasure, but challenge yourself, learn new things. You're stretching that muscle, you're building that muscle. It's a really important, it's the central component of your ecosystem. But there are other things that are part of it. Your diet, what you eat, when you eat, your sleep patterns, how you look after your body, and the sleep routines that you've got. It's difficult at the moment with it being so hot, and let's not moan about the weather, a very British thing to do. But yeah, there are obviously accommodations you can make. Movement and exercise. Some people don't like exercise. They think it sounds, like they're being put on a boot camp. But we've got to move about. We've got to find some form of exercise that works for us, because again, it's all really good for your brain. Your attitude. I think we've talked about attitude and positivity quite a few times already. You are how you think. So if you've got these sort of negative thought patterns that don't serve you, and you keep letting them play over and over again in your brain, then you're not helping yourself. You need to put the effort in to changing that, to focusing on what you want, what's good, what does good look like, and how do you get there. So this is what I think when I think about ecosystem, and I get quite excited about it because I am into the environment, and I think is that the personal internal ecosystem is one thing, and then obviously we get back to the Venn diagram, and the ecosystem is where you cross over with other people, other people's attitudes, other people's approaches to food, other people's approaches to sleep. We're we're all in communities where we're impacted by that, whether you've got a family or you hang out with your friends all the time, or the work patterns, maybe that your boss has got, and they say, God, do you mind if we have a call at 10 o'clock at night? No, that's not all right, because I've already been in bed an hour then because I'm doing this, healthy sleep routine. So yeah, think about the environments that you're part of, and how that impacts you and how you can really improve it. You can't do it all at once, so you've got to sort of focus on little things. To maybe start with the easy things, do a few crosswords, try and eat more omega-3, probably less chocolate unless it's 80% dark, because that's actually pretty good for you. So that, and get up and about, and go for walks and things like that. Or if you're sort of movement impaired, think about how you can get out, how you can maybe get some friends, to come along and support you. So that's my take on ecosystem, and I think it's a really nice framework to develop all kinds of coaching models from.
Yeah, and also what's coming up for me listening to you is this idea of giving yourself permission to look after yourself. There's this thing amongst parents. The parents amongst us will be familiar with that thing, and it's also when you get on an aeroplane and they tell you have to fit your own oxygen mask before you can fit anyone else's. But that thing of like, you're just not going to be any good if you don't get yourself in a good place. And we all know this, we hear this all over the place. But I love the idea of attracting clients by talking about the fact that we have this unifying agenda, which is the environment, but doing so from a place of kindness and compassion that says, if you really want to have impact, there's a lot of noise out there about sort of how to make change as global citizens, but we have to be able to work on ourselves first and become conscious of how to make change in an ecosystem so that we can make it expand out. And the fact that you're brilliant at painting pictures with Venn diagrams is probably going to be quite helpful for you in terms of your visual communication, because it helps us to understand that you're all about being able to start from a place and then work outwards. That's what I'm hearing when I listen to you talking about.
Yeah, I was sitting there in the garden in a deck chair at the weekend. It was lovely and warm, and it's just, I was thinking I need to get more into meditation, because it's not a thing that I do, and I've talked to lots of people about it, and I know it's really healthy, so it's definitely a to do. It's one of the things that I'm sort of focusing on for my well-being. So I was practicing something that I'd read about a meditation where you basically let yourself relax. You do some mindful breathing, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 6, and it's like you're going to sleep, but you don't let yourself go to sleep. And at that moment, I got this idea about writing a coaching model for if you want to change something, and making it about gardening, like grow your own. So I'm writing that at the moment, and I'd love to share that with people, where you're kind of using the same kind of criteria that you would use if you were growing something in the garden. So what's your intention? Do you just want to grow potatoes? Or are you looking to be self-sufficient in salad? And then, okay, what do you need to do from that? And I was making it look like a flower. So yeah, I do like these kind of graphics and images, and I'm going to bounce that off a few people. So if people in the community, want to sort of try that out with something that they're going to change in their life, I'd be happy to share it.
Sounds like what you're talking about is finding a sort of familiar metaphor on which to base a kind of approach to self-growth, but from a place of like either practical, mindful salad growing. There's amazing practices in the. I was kind of part of a Buddhist community for a couple of years, and I went on a silence and gardening retreat, and the idea was that you, in silence, did some gardening so as to meditate, and yeah, so you take something practical. So you're killing 2 birds with one stone, or there's no killing going on, of course. And thinking about what can you practice practically that's also going to be a self-growth tool. And I can't help but bring it back to kind of what we're doing, which is to say, what do you have to do every day? Now, Lucy, you're going to be putting yourself out there in quite a different way to how you've ever had to do before. And the sort of comfort place that is being able to fall back on that corporate framework is not going to be where you're at quite soon. Yeah. And that can feel quite onerous and intimidating and scary and overwhelming. But, what you will get back from the practice your daily practice of putting yourself out there, we hope will serve you if you're able to do it mindfully. And that's another thing. It's like whatever you are looking to put yourself out there as long as it's a kind of self-conscious, nurturing practice, it should be that you're constantly asking yourself, is what I'm doing right now, is the practice that I'm developing going to be serving me? So I love the idea of asking people for feedback about a particular idea, because the more you can iterate, obviously you're the queen of this in being coming from the tech world, but the idea of kind of failing fast and iterating is a great one when you're looking to develop a practice. And we have to go quite existential, don't we? Because we have to ask ourselves questions about how much, you know, and you're the great question askers, being coaches. And we say this, Simon and I, that we're really lucky to be surrounded by coaches, because what makes good marketing is actually good question asking. Well, you know, you don't have a better community of people really than coaches, who are already brilliantly able to ask questions, but maybe not so much of themselves, and haven't thought about employing those question asking skills with their marketing and being able to kind of gather people around them who are interested to kind of be part of the conversation. But where was I going with that? The idea of asking yourself questions of, you know, is this really valuable to me? Is it really valuable to anyone else? How do I talk about that? And then this sort of pride and shame, all these things coming up about when you learn that maybe it isn't serving you or isn't serving anyone else, because no one is saying, yes, I really want to do a salad growing course. It's like, well, what do we do with that? You know, how can we iterate from there? So I think a lot of what you're talking about is speaking to the quite sort of spiritual level of where people are going to go when they work with you, but I think you're also talking about some of the practical sort of how do you actually get to doing that every day, and it makes sense for you. So I know these are the questions that are coming up for you at the moment, and you've created this amazing space for yourself. I think, you know, some people, it won't work for them financially or energetically to kind of stop after 23 years of corporate life and start doing something else. And for a lot of people, the dovetailing of those two things can work very well. But for you, it's been quite important, hasn't it, for you to kind of put an end to something and start something else? So.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, I mean, I thought a lot about potentially going part-time. And I mean, you're so right. You know, I don't want to assume that people can just jack something in, because obviously we all need the money, quite frankly. You know, so I've been saving up. I've really been consciously saving up. You know, actually to putting quite a lot of money away. Also, I'm not as young as hopefully you think I am. So I've been working for quite a long time. So, you know, so kind of already paid off some of my debts and things like that, you know, so giving myself that freedom. But I know not everybody has that. You know, it's a privilege, it really is. So, yeah, think about, okay, how can I do more coaching in my life with to make it fit with everything else I've got, you know, my family, my job, the hobbies that mean a lot to me. You know, how can you kind of weave coaching in to those things? Because you know, if you join like the Association for Coaching and there are other professional associations, to get the accreditation, you have to have done some coaching. But a lot of that can be, you know, the pro bono type, where you know, you're providing it maybe to a charity, or you know, or you're saying to somebody, look, you know, do you mind working with me on this? I'm not going to charge you any money. So you know, it all counts. And you know, and it doesn't matter if it's somebody that you're related to, or your next door neighbour, or you know, somebody down a local shop who's, you know, got something that they're wrestling with. So yeah, I did think a lot, you know, what would make sense for me. Is it too much of a jolt if I just leave? And it will be a jolt, you know, and there's a lot of learned behaviours and habits. You know, Simon mentioned habits. I mean, we build a habit, 3 months, they reckon? You know, so, you know, how many sets of 3 months are there in 23 years? You know, there's a lot of stuff to untangle. I'll be very used to it. And I'm already trying to unlearn some of the language, which I think isn't that useful to me. But there's a lot of concepts that I'm going to keep, like you mentioned, failing fast, you know, trying things out. But equally, I'm not going to give up on things too quickly, because some things you've got to iterate, you've got to keep trying it. Maybe you're not talking to the right people, and that's, you know, that's what's going to be brilliant about this community. There's going to be so many different people that we can try things out on, and you know, and we'll get so many different points of view. So we'll have the opportunity to fail fast, but we'll also have the opportunity to keep trying.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a balance to be made, especially in the sort of more entrepreneur world, this sort of, fail fast, try just, throw it all in the bin and start again. But actually I've also heard that most people quit 99% before it was going to work.
Yeah.
And it's that if you'd just given it one more go, it might have worked. You change that last thing, tweak that last bit, and it might have worked. And knowing whether you're at 99% done or whether it's just not going to work is where you need the outside opinion often. So I think having a community of people who are in the same sphere of what they do, but knowing that there's plenty of other, there's plenty of people out there who are looking for coaches, plenty of work to go around, is a great way to get someone who knows enough to give you an informed opinion and is going to give you an honest response of being like, do you know what, actually you're so close to getting this working, but you're just using this one phrase or this one thing, and it might just be putting people off. Or as an example, maybe they can see something you can't, or maybe they'll just be like, actually, do you know what, I read a whole book on why this isn't really the direction that, you know what I mean, there's ways and things, advice, and I think just stories people can tell about, do you know what, I tried to do this for 5 years and I couldn't do it at all. So just anecdotally, in the web design agency that I've been running for 18 years, we tried to sell essentially people to kind of look after the websites that we built, and nobody wanted to buy it. And all we did was change the name of it. We made that one simple change, and now every client buys it because they now can't live without it, rather than... And it works so well for them because they now get all of the things they want wrapped up into a nice little neat package they can buy. But it took someone who had nothing to do with web design, who used to sell hair dye to hairdressers. He just looked at it and he said, well, just flip that word. And we were like, we've been looking at it wrong for all these years, and as soon as we made that little change, and it was just, sometimes you just need those outside eyes. So hopefully the conversations that can emerge are going to be constructive and collaborative in that sense. And actually also, just to loop back to another thought I was having there, is that as an owner of a web design agency, some of the best advice we get is from fellow web design agency owners. Like, we'll just call them up and say, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Am I going completely mad, or is this me? Because there isn't a network of community web design. That's a business for next year. But I think it's that thing of just actually asking peers can be incredibly valuable as soon as you get over that barrier of there's no competition.
And I can see some lovely chat going on as a sidebar, literally. So just to give a nod to the lovely story that Rachel has presented to us about the Tibetan book of living and dying, I think it is, Rachel. And it's about your intention goal. It's like a seed you plant, and then water nurturing it, and then trust in that growing, and then never quite knowing what colour the flower will be when it blooms. And the lesson that Rachel remembers from this is that once the seed is planted, you wouldn't keep digging it up every day to check on it. You just need to trust. And I think that's what we're talking about is like being able to trust both that you might not have all the answers, trust in if you've planted the seed, let's leave it alone for a bit, trust in if you work with other people, stuff might come to you. If you're open, that's that karma thing. If you're able to be open, then you are able to welcome in amazing things that can happen, and you can't possibly... actually Rich, who's here today, if it wasn't for him, and you've mentioned him, Lucy, I would not be here today. If I wasn't part of a community, I wouldn't know Simon, I wouldn't know our founders who, may well listen to this back one day. So Carlos and Lawrence, nod to you. Thank you very much. Happy Startup School. It's done amazing things for us in terms of feeling like we belong, and feeling that we have, we're amongst us, there are people who are here to support us in what we're doing now with this Better Bolder Braver venture. But just, the alone thing is really important to me, not being alone, not doing things on your own, and the accountability. So there'll be quite a lot of activity going on in the community that might simply be a space in which to kind of work on stuff together. So we might just get together. This isn't there's a lot more structured content stuff that we have in the diary for members, and those of you guys on this call who are already in the community will know that there's a lot in the diary already. But there's also going to be some really emergent or just accountability opportunities where you might like to write a blog post, find a dedicated time to do it, where you're not going to go off and make your lunch or do some ironing, and then have someone else on the call, and then you'll just put yourselves on silent, do your thing, and then come back to just reflect on how that was as an experience. But then you'll have the content to put out there, as well as you'll have someone else to kind of give you a pat on the back and offer some thoughts if that's what you're up for receiving at that time. So yeah, trust is a big one. Thank you, Rachel, also for kind of linking that nicely back to Lucy's analogy about gardening. So here's an example of Lucy's had a thought about a particular kind of focus for where she might go with the business, but what it's done today is give us some food for thought about kind of the community, which we could never have thought was going to be a thing. So there you go. That was lovely. Well done.
Yeah.
Everyone here.
Yeah. Some ideas will need more nurturing, won't they? And they're at different life stages. So yeah, I love what Rachel talked about, and she's not going to get away with not trying out my model, because I think she's going to be ideal for having a go at that and giving me some feedback on it. But when you're sort of growing seedlings, you have to have them in the right place, don't you? They have to be at the right temperature. But like she says, you don't want to be fiddling with it every day, and also you don't want to over nurture it. You don't want to sort of keep it too hot, for too long, or it's just not going to thrive. So we've got to be cognizant that if there are 50 people in the group, that they'll be at 50 different stages, with what they're doing, and they'll need 50 different approaches, maybe more than 50, depending on how many things that they're looking to offer.
Also,
I'm sure you can. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The other thing I just wanted to add there is, like, if you imagine someone who's just starting out and they've planted all their seeds, and then someone who's been doing it for 20 years might come along and say, actually, do you know what, if you plant those next to those, they germinate a lot quicker. And you'd be like, that's really good to know. But you wouldn't know sometimes, because you're just focusing down here, and it takes that person a little higher up to pass some knowledge down. So that's also something that could work well, to use the gardening analogy again.
And now you've got me going on it. I'm going to use the gardening analogy to say that the weather, especially in this country, is very unpredictable. So we, Simon and I, are very clear that there are no rights, wrongs, truths, ways, or like facts when it comes to marketing. There's lots of ideas, lots of people shouting about stuff that you might want to do, but we're really clear that it's about sort of giving stuff a go, seeing what sticks for you, seeing what feels right. We can talk you through the science of why it makes sense, or who's done it and where it worked before, and we've got 40 years between us to paint that picture of what can work in marketing or what good marketing looks like. But ultimately what we don't want to do is a load of scaremongering, or making people feel like they have to have all the answers first and then have to make a kind of really strategic plan about where they're going to go, because it is so much about emergence, and also there are external factors that you just can't really control. So for me, a lot about marketing is actually a bigger conversation about being able to relinquish control, being able to understand that when you serve something to someone, whether it's a blog post or a question, what you get back is going to inform half of the product, as it were. So, to use the kind of weather analogy, you can be an amazing gardener and know that germination is a thing, or, you can be quite strategic about at what point in the year you might plant something and how to prune things, and what you could be designing a patch that's only going to grow salad, and then some other random thing might pop up. So it's about sort of being able to kind of fare the weather, whatever it is that it's thrown at you, but if you're doing it with other people, to the point of this kind of entire conversation, it can make it bearable, but hopefully more fun as well. That's the kind of other main vibe that we wanted to make sure we've imparted on people today. So, has anyone got any questions? We've got about 10 minutes until we're at the hour. We wouldn't want to keep Lucy any longer than that, because it's just been amazing to have you. Do you?
Well, I was going to say, Lucy, the question that we're posing to our guests on the Monday Masterclass is, of course, thinking about the coaching questions that you would ask the people that you coach. What question would you pose yourself to think about your marketing in a different way?
Yeah, thank you. And it's a lovely question. And what keeps popping into my mind is what do you want your legacy to be? So yeah, what do you want to leave behind? What impact do you want to make? And I guess, let's just stick with the gardening. Is I want for things to be able to grow on pretty much on their own. I think a lot of people now feel like life's a struggle and that they need help all the way and that there's a lot of barriers. So what I would really like is for my legacy to be that people feel more self-sufficient and more robust and resilient.
Lovely, thank you. That's a great question. That really makes us focus. What do you want to have as your legacy? How did you phrase it? What do you want your legacy to be? Yeah, and I love that because it makes people think, what do I really want to put out there? Because what do I want people to remember me by? So that's great. I love that. It's a really good question. Is that a question here?
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question to ask because I think it gives your content some longer term meaning, I think. So rather than just being like, oh, I'm just going to throw some noise out onto the already very noisy internet, it's like, well, actually, what do I want this post to do in 6 months, a year? Is there a legacy? Is there a longer term thing that this post could speak to or serve? So even if the answer to that is not really, it's a time-based thing, then that's fine, but at least it's that question that's getting you thinking. And I think as a wider thing, just about your whole coaching practice, what do you want that legacy to be of your whole practice? And then, therefore, how can you communicate that to people who aren't working with you yet, who might like to? So, yeah, it's a fascinating question. Really good, thank you.
And it's something that we can, something that we can talk about, isn't it? In the community is, we can talk to each other about what we would be really open. When obviously when we build those circles of trust. About what we want our legacy to be, or if we're a bit confused, and aren't sure, and we want to kind of, bounce ideas around with people.
That links to a question that's being asked here by Nisha, which is it important to carve out a niche for yourself in coaching or brand yourself as a particular type of coach? So this is the number 2 out of the top 3 questions that Simon and I get asked every day. So if you want the answer, join the community. No, but the link is that you don't have to niche forever. So if you decide to, all I'm going to say now, because we can't go on to it, we will go into it, don't worry Nisha, because we go into it quite often, we have to. So when yes, we would argue that niching is a great thing to do because it allows you to focus your mind to the point that I'm trying to make here. But it isn't forever. So what you think of as being the legacy that you want people to remember you by is the way in which you can niche down your message so that people will understand that you're the right coach for them today. But if you decide that actually you have a different legacy in mind, you can pivot that and change your niche. So is it important to carve out a niche for yourself? Yes, because it helps you to attract clients, but also it makes you focus your mind on what it is that you are looking to surround yourself with in terms of people and energy, and pricing comes into it. We go down an existential rabbit hole about what pricing is and what outcome you're trying to deliver and how you price for that and not your time. It's a whole minefield, but very important one for us. So yes.
I was going to say, so just on that second point, or brand yourself, where you're in your question you say, or brand yourself as a particular type of coach, I'd say that the two are quite intertwined, but the type of coach is a really great way to just signpost people early doors as to whether you're the right fit or not. So if you say, okay, well, I'm a coach who operates in the wellbeing space, then if I'm looking for a business coach or a financial coach, I'm in the wrong place. So I can very quickly save you a whole conversation there. Whereas if you say, oh yeah, okay, I'm a wellbeing coach, that's the sort of signpost, brilliant, tell me more about what you do. You can then go into your niche, which describes more of, these are the people I can help the most effectively, and I can most clearly see the outcome and the insight that I can deliver for them. And at that point, that person then has a choice as to whether they want to continue that conversation or whether it's not quite the right fit for them. So really the niching aspect of it is all about just helping signpost the conversations, to get down to the people. So hopefully right at that moment where you're having that conversation with someone, they're clear as to whether you're the right fit or whether it's not quite right for them. But as Francis said, it's a very big question. We'll definitely come back to it. Lucy,
and Rachel's,
something to that?
Yeah, Rachel's, I think maybe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, maybe a little bit worried about the scale of the word legacy. Absolutely, Lucinda, I think it can be a small thing as well. So I've just had a couple of weeks off work, partly to wean myself off it, because I'm leaving in 31 working days, and partly because it was nice and sunny, and partly because my husband was off. And one of the things I've done, we've lived in this house for 9 years, and we've never done anything to the garden, so it's just all lawn. And I dug some of the lawn up. So now, part of my garden legacy is that I've got 4 shrubs where it used to be lawn. So that's like a little legacy. And if I manage to, and let's not say if, when I finish my coaching model, which is about grow your own, which is just an analogy, then that's part of my legacy. To give somebody a tool that helps them, to change by thinking about patterns in nature. So it can be like little tiny things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Rich, you've asked, if you keep on pivoting your niche, how do you remarket yourself going forward? So this is going to, my first kind of initial thoughts on this, and again, we can't really go into it today. Always the way. At the end of a session, it's probably the same in coaching, it's definitely the same in therapy, where in the last 10 minutes of a session, everything starts happening. So basically, yes, Rich, it's all about being a human being. So it's totally all right to pivot your niche, because if you're prepared to market yourself as a human being moving forward, then all you're saying is, can I do that, Simon?
Yes.
So all you're saying is, I'm a human being. This was really important to me. I developed this amazing network of people, and I did this stuff, and people really resonated with it, and I created a really amazing thing. Now I'm really interested in this, so I'm going to be doing this, but I take what I did before to this. So let's take Lucy as an example. Lucy's going to be able to look back on her 23 years in the tech world, and she immediately stands out because she has that experience. Anyone trying to hide anything that they've done before is not going to do very well for many, many reasons. Firstly, because I think we all need to be able to own what we've done in our lives. Secondly, because you're not going to serve yourself if you're trying to kind of hide something that's happened to you or that you've done. And I'm not going to go down the sort of victim, the drama triangle thing now, but it's about just being okay with what's happened, being able to own the decisions that you've made, whether it's about niching or careers or anything else, and then moving forward from that. And Rich, I'm not going to go into detail about your life because that's not, you haven't given me permission to do that here, but I think suffice to say that you've got a lot of stuff that you've done, which if you decided you wanted to do something with today, you could just repurpose in terms of why you're extremely experienced to do something next week. So it's okay. Again, it's that giving yourself permission to focus now. You can change it. It's all right. No one's going to die. You can just be creative with your messaging. So yeah, that's what I'd say about that one.
I think also just on that, in terms of pivoting the niche, it's that's absolutely fine, because remembering that your niche really is you extending the invitation. So if you're saying, at the moment, I really would like to work with these people. These are the people who I think I can serve the best. These people are bringing me the right energy, and this is who I'd like to work with. Let's say 6 months down the line, you realise that actually within that niche, perhaps there's an even more niched group of people that you can help more effectively. You can then just change your messaging slightly. Or, however, you might get 6 months in and think, actually, do you know what? These just aren't the right fit people for me at all. I'm going to change my invitation right at the top of the conversation and say, do you know what? Now, I think I'd like to work with these people. This is how I want to start that invitation conversation. And the thing is the people who may have been attracted to you obviously will see that change in message and think, oh, Rich isn't the right fit for me anymore. And that's a good thing, because it's just saving you having that conversation. It's signposting to them early on, do you know what, Rich is no longer the right fit for me, but actually I do know someone else who might be the right fit. So you're never going to lose in the conversation. I think it's just a case of sort of refining and focusing the conversation a little more, and as Francis said, giving yourself permission to change that conversation as it feels right to do so.
And Rachel's brought a really important sort of final point to this conversation for the sake of time, which is that if you're able to kind of hold up a mirror and say what you're going through as a client is what I'm going through as a fellow human being, that is going to resonate.
Yeah.
Being able to say I've transitioned, being able to say I've made a decision, but you know, we don't know what's going to happen next week, is something that's very useful for people who you're working with. So the more honest, you know, there's a whole other conversation about which word works well when you're talking about honesty, authenticity, vulnerability, and that's another whole module of ours. But I think the point is, if people can connect with you because you're being yourself, that's going to help. You know, and the sooner you're able to be yourself, but be in a boundaried way that feels very safe for you, then you're going to be able to kind of have people feeling that you're the right person for them to connect to. So yes, we get very passionate about all these things. Thanks for asking all these questions, everybody, and thanks for being here today. Lucy, do you have any final thoughts, any questions from you? And then before we do a bit of a kind of sales pitch, please can you let us know, where can people find you? Where do you want people to find you right now, Lucy?
So yeah, final few words. You know, thanks everyone for joining. It's been such a great conversation. I think, like any coaching session, like any training course that you go on, we learn a lot from it, don't you? I've learned a lot of things from the conversation, from the chat, the text chat that's been going on, as well as the conversation we've had as a group, and hopefully you have, you know, and we're building our networks of concentric circles or Venn diagrams, so that's wonderful. I think the best place to find me is LinkedIn, so please do link in with me, and you'll see, you know, actually, like Rich pointed out, I've got two brands at the moment, you know, so one is a manager in tech and one is a coach, and then in 31 days the tech bit, you know, the heading drops off, but the 23 years behind it stays there, you know. And it's a big part of who I am and what I do. I don't have a website at the moment, and that's something that I'm thinking about. What will that look like? And absolutely, you know, you think about what do you want people to see, you know, and I don't really know, to be honest, at the moment. So yeah, I'm being emergent about that, which sounds like a cop out and probably is. But yeah,
like a
LinkedIn.
very sensible place to be, Lucy. Don't rush into it.
Yeah, I'll just see what sprouts out of all the seeds that I've been planting.
See what sprouts. Can you just remember that one? Yeah.
Nice, very nice.
And yeah, thank you all.
We've just posted Lucy's LinkedIn into the chat if anybody wants to connect straight away, and we will post, obviously that we'll post in the community under the replay as well if anybody wants to connect there.
It's really awesome to have so many of you here today, so thank you, and we hope that you'll be able to join us for future Monday Masterclasses. And Lucy, just love you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today and for being the first, and I hope you've got a lot out of it as well, and
we'll
probably see you in the community very soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks very much for joining us, Lucy. It's been a pleasure to have you on, and thanks everybody for joining in with the discussion. If you are already registered on Crowdcast, which you will be by simply being on this session, then you'll get pinged about future sessions, so do come along to those if you can. We're going to post a link to the community now, so that there should be a big button that says join the community, which you can click, which will take you straight to the joining page, or you can go via betterbolderbraver.com. So the button below the chat should say join the community, and then as we've just posted, there's the website there if you want to learn a bit more. We hope to see you inside. As we said, you will just get notified about future events, so if you just hang around with the Crowdcast link, we'll keep pinging you for future discussions. If you've got any questions, do connect with us on LinkedIn or inside the community. Thanks very much everybody for joining us. Thanks for listening and watching, and we will see you all next time.
Bye.
See you later.
Thanks. Bye everyone.